really sterile, brightly lit room, and you're immediately told you have to deliver an 8-minute public speech.
Oh, wow.
Right, completely unprepared. Sitting across from you is a panel of strangers in white lab coats holding clipboards.
Sounds like an absolute nightmare.
It gets worse. They've been specifically instructed not to smile, not to nod, and to just stare at you completely stone-faced.
Oh.
And there's a large, very conspicuous video camera pointing directly at your face.
Just listening to that scenario is enough to, make someone's palm sweat.
Seriously. And as soon as you finish that grueling speech, the panel demands you complete 5 minutes of rapid-fire mental arithmetic out loud.
Oh, no.
Yep. If you make a mistake, they force you to start all over again.
Yeah, researchers actually have a name for that. It's called the Trier Social Stress Test. They use it because it reliably induces the ultimate psychological boss battle in almost anyone.
Well, that tight chest and, racing heart you might be feeling just picturing that room, that is the exact physiological state we are tackling in today's deep dive. Absolutely.
Because if you've ever had a panic attack, or even just like crippling Sunday night anxiety, everyone, your friends, your doctor, the internet, they all just tell you to just meditate.
Right, like it's that easy.
Exactly. So you pull out your phone, you look at thousands of generic audio tracks, and the paradox of choice completely overwhelms you. You end up, way more stressed than when you started.
It's a very real problem. I mean, scrolling through endless options while your nervous system is in full-blown fight-or-flight mode is incredibly counterproductive. You need immediate intervention, not a catalog.
Which is why we're doing something much more practical today. We're looking at a really rich stack of sources, including clinical trial data from the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry.
Great source.
Yeah, and we're putting that alongside an extensive library of professional guided meditation scripts from experts at the University of Rochester, mindfulness exercises, the Wellness Society, and some specialized therapists.
And we aren't just summarizing these scripts. We're going to analyze the underlying science and the very specific techniques behind them. Right. Our mission today is to take the best elements from the clinical data and those scripts to help you understand how to piece together the ultimate, most effective meditation audio for anxiety relief.
We are essentially building a masterclass toolkit for your anxious mind.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with that nightmare scenario I mentioned earlier. Before we build our ideal toolkit, we need to prove why these practices are actually worth your time.
Right. We have to look at how mindfulness actually rewires the brain under extreme pressure.
Because if we're going to do this, we need the proof.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is that, understanding the mechanism is what builds trust in the process. We have to look at this fascinating 2013 randomized controlled trial. It involved 93 individuals diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder.
Okay, so these are people whose baseline is chronic worry, like constant physiological hyperarousal.
Yes, not just everyday stress, but clinical anxiety.
Right.
So they split these participants into 2 groups for an 8-week intervention. One group learned MBSR mindfulness-based stress reduction, and the other group participated in an active control program called SME, which stands for Stress Management Education.
When I was reviewing the source material, what really struck me about that SME group is that they weren't just, sitting around reading pamphlets.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they were getting comprehensive education on stress physiology. They learned time management, nutrition. They even did posture exercises with a physical therapist. I mean, it was a rigorous, highly practical program.
It was a very solid curriculum. And the researchers wanted to see how both of these groups would handle the Trier social stress test.
That laboratory boss battle we talked about?
Exactly. They put everyone in front of the stone-faced evaluators and that intimidating camera.
And the results were genuinely surprising to me, because both the mindfulness group and the stress management group saw their clinical anxiety scores drop, specifically on this metric called the Hamilton Anxiety Rating Scale, or HAMA.
Right, so both approaches technically worked.
But I have to push back here. If learning time management and posture also drops your clinical anxiety score, why are we focusing so heavily on building a meditation toolkit? What makes the mindfulness approach demonstrably better?
Well, what's fascinating here is the crucial difference between simply managing physical symptoms and actually building deep psychological resilience.
Okay, explain that.
The HAMA scale heavily weighs somatic symptoms. So the physical feelings of anxiety, like a racing heart or tense muscles, both groups naturally improved there.
Sure.
But the mindfulness group showed significantly greater reductions in self-reported distress, which they measure with something called the Beck Anxiety Inventory.
Oh, I see. So they weren't just experiencing fewer physical jitters, their actual internal experience of the stress was entirely different.
Yes, during that terrifying test, the mindfulness group generated a significantly greater increase in positive self-statements. They weren't just white-knuckling their way through the stress.
They were actively changing how they viewed themselves while under pressure.
Exactly. And the literature from our mindfulness exercises source points to the neurological reason for this. Sustained meditation practice can actually shrink the amygdala.
The brain's fear center.
Yes, you are literally altering the physical hardware of your brain to be less reactive to perceived threats.
Okay, that is wild. It proves that meditation isn't just like a gentle wellness trend. It is a literal neurobiological intervention.
Absolutely.
So that science gives us the perfect foundation. Let's actually start building out this toolkit for you. Because if you're having an anxious episode, the most effective audio track cannot begin with deep philosophical reflection.
No, definitely not.
Right. If your nervous system is sounding the alarm, trying to reflect on your life choices is just impossible. We have to triage the immediate panic first.
And the fastest, most direct route to the nervous system is through the breath. This is where we introduce box breathing.
Okay, walk us through that.
It's incredibly simple, which is exactly what you need in a crisis. You inhale through your nose for 4 seconds. You hold that breath in your lungs for 4 seconds. You exhale slowly for 4 seconds, and then you hold your lungs completely empty for 4 seconds.
A perfect, continuous box. 4, 4, 4, 4.
Exactly.
I've read the high-stress professionals like soldiers and emergency responders actually use this specific technique.
They do.
But why does this simple counting exercise snap the body out of fight or flight?
Well, it comes down to the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic nervous system. When you're panicking, your breathing naturally becomes rapid and shallow, right?
Yeah, you start hyperventilating a bit.
Which signals to your brain that you are in physical danger. Box breathing forces a deliberate rhythmic pattern. The holds, particularly the hold on the exhale, dramatically stimulate the vagus nerve. Interesting. Yeah, it essentially acts as a manual override switch, literally commanding your heart rate to slow down.
So you're forcing the physiology of calm onto your body?
Precisely.
But let's say we have the breath anchored, yet your mind is still racing with a million terrifying thoughts. The University of Rochester Medicine source recommends pairing breathwork with the 5-4-3-2-1 coping technique.
Yes, it's a foundational grounding exercise. You acknowledge 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 you can hear, 2 you can smell, and 1 you can taste.
I have to be honest here. When I first read that script, my immediate thought was that trying to hunt down 2 distinct smells in my sterile office while I'm already panicking sounds like it would just make me feel way worse.
It sounds stressful.
Yeah, it feels like a frantic sensory scavenger hunt. Why doesn't that just add to the cognitive overload?
I totally get that. It might sound like a frantic hunt on paper, but that frantic energy is actually what we are trying to hijack and redirect.
Hijack it how?
When you're anxious, your brain is trapped in a loop of rumination, agonizing over what-ifs and future catastrophes. By forcing your brain to process highly concrete external sensory data like the physical texture of your desk or the hum of the air conditioner or, the lingering taste of toothpaste,
Right.
doing that short circuits that internal panic loop.
Oh, I get it. It almost sounds like a computer processor that's stuck at 100% capacity running a malicious background program.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks. By giving the brain a highly specific sensory task, you're forcing it to reallocate all its RAM to your immediate physical reality. You are literally starving the anxiety loop of processing power.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. You're using empirical, undeniable sensory data to prove to your brain that in this exact second, in this exact room, you are physically safe.
Wow. Okay, so we've officially stopped the acute panic. The breath is stabilized with box breathing, and the mind is grounded with the 5-4-3-2-1 method.
But the transition here is critical.
Right, because even though the mental alarm bells have stopped ringing, your muscles don't actually know the emergency is over yet. Your body is still flooded with the physical remnants of adrenaline.
Exactly. You cannot force the mind to fully relax if the body is still holding on to the physical memory of that stress.
So what's the tool for that?
This brings us to a technique called progressive muscle relaxation, or PMR. Our sources adapt this from Edmund J. Bourne's work. It's a methodical process where you deliberately tense a specific muscle group for 5 seconds, abruptly release it, and then pause for 10 seconds to feel the wave of relaxation.
Okay, so you might raise your eyebrows as high as you can, hold that tension for 5 seconds, and let go.
Right.
Or you might squeeze your thighs together as hard as possible, like you're holding a penny between your knees. Hold it and release.
Yes, moving through the whole body.
But I have a huge question about this mechanism. If I am already incredibly stressed out, my shoulders are tight, my jaw is clenched, why on earth am I intentionally adding more tension to my body? Isn't that counterproductive?
It seems like it, but this raises an important point about how we experience chronic stress. If we connect this to the bigger picture, many chronically anxious people are entirely disconnected from their bodies.
Oh, interesting.
They walk around with their shoulders practically glued to their ears all day long, and they don't even notice the discomfort anymore. It's become their new normal. You cannot release tension if your brain doesn't recognize that it's there.
Ah. So you have to exaggerate the tension to make it visible to your own nervous system.
Precisely. And that 10-second deliberate pause after you release the tension, that is where the actual reprogramming happens.
Yeah.
By abruptly dropping that exaggerated tension, you are teaching your nervous system the stark contrast between chronic stress and true heavy limpness.
You're re-educating your muscles on what relaxation actually feels like.
Exactly.
That is fascinating. Now, our sources contrast PMR with another somatic technique called the body scan. The Wellness Society script outlines this beautifully.
It's a very different approach.
Yeah, with a body scan, you aren't actively tensing or flexing anything. You are just moving your attention slowly from your feet up to your face and simply noticing whatever sensations are present.
Yeah.
Tingling, pulsing, heaviness, warmth.
And crucially, you are noticing those sensations without trying to change them. If your chest feels tight, you just mentally acknowledge the tightness. You don't fight it. PMR is an active release. The body scan is passive acceptance.
Thinking about how to use this toolkit in daily life, the application seems really clear. Like if you're sitting at your desk, your inbox is blowing up, and you're buzzing with frantic energy, PMR gives you something active to do to burn off that adrenaline.
Yes.
But if you're lying in bed at 2 a.m. trying to sleep, the passive acceptance of the body scan is probably going to serve you much better.
Both are incredibly powerful tools for bridging the gap between your physical state and your mental awareness.
So the body is now relaxed and the acute panic is gone. This brings us to the final crowning phase of our highly effective meditation audio.
The nervous system is quiet enough that we can finally address the internal monologue.
Right. This is where we actively rewire the cognitive narrative. We have to replace the lingering fear with profound feelings of safety and self-compassion.
The sources provide some incredible tools for this, starting with visualization.
Yeah, there are guided scripts here titled The Calm Place and The Forest. And what struck me isn't just the imagery, but how intensely sensory the scripts are. They don't just tell you to imagine a nice tree.
No, it's much deeper than that.
They instruct you to imagine the rich, earthy dampness of the forest floor. You visualize the exact sound of water trickling around multicolored rocks and the intricate patterns of sunlight filtering down through the canopy.
That level of granular detail is highly intentional. It engages the visual and spatial processing centers of your brain. By building out this rich sensory environment, you are pulling cognitive resources directly away from the language centers that are driving your anxious, looping thoughts.
But let's say I'm sitting in this beautiful, meticulously imagined forest, yet my mind keeps wandering back to the looming deadlines I have at work. My first instinct would be to think I am totally failing the meditation. Am I?
That is the most common fear people have when trying visualization, and the answer is absolutely not.
Okay. Ew.
The goal of meditation is never to achieve a completely blank mind. That's biologically impossible. Using sensory anchors in a visualization simply gives your wandering mind a safe, neutral place to return to when it inevitably drifts.
Oh, so it acts as a tether.
Yes. As the observing anxiety scripts from mindfulness exercises suggest, the goal is to shift into a non-judgmental stance. It's about befriending the anxiety rather than going to war with it.
Befriending it.
Yeah. When the thought about your deadline pops up in the forest, you don't scold yourself. You just say, there's that anxiety again. And you gently pull your attention back to the sound of the trickling water.
Befriending the anxiety is such a radical concept, and it leads perfectly into the next tool in our narrative toolkit, the self-compassion break.
Yes, this is a great one.
This was developed by researchers Kristen Neff and Chris Germer, and I found the mechanics of it incredibly moving.
Walk us through how they structure it.
So it breaks down into 3 distinct stages to use right in the middle of a struggle. Stage 1 is mindfulness. You literally just say to yourself, this is a moment of struggle, or even just ouch, this hurts. You don't minimize it, you validate the pain.
Right.
Stage 2 is common humanity. You remind yourself, struggle is a normal part of life, or I am not alone in feeling this.
Powerful.
And stage 3 is kindness. The script suggests placing a hand over your heart to offer yourself a soothing physical touch and saying, may I be kind to myself, or may I give myself what I need in this moment?
It creates a profound cognitive shift. Think about the nature of anxious self-talk. It is almost always intensely isolating and highly critical. We say things to ourselves we would never say to someone we love.
So true.
The self-compassion break directly counters that isolation by deliberately connecting you to the rest of humanity and offering yourself the exact same grace you would instinctively offer a good friend.
Which brings us to the ultimate extension of this idea, loving kindness meditation, or LKM. The Wellness Society script for this is so powerful.
It really is.
You start by repeating phrases for yourself, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be free from suffering. Then you extend those exact same phrases to someone you love. Then you project them onto a neutral person, like a barista or a neighbor.
And then comes the most challenging step. You extend those phrases to a difficult person in your life, someone you actively have conflict with.
Yeah, when I read that, I balked. Like, no way.
Right, it's tough.
But the source makes a crucial note here. This isn't about condoning bad behavior. It's a mechanism to release yourself from the neurobiological burden of holding on to anger. But why does projecting kindness outward actually relieve our own internal anxiety?
Because it forces you to drop the heavy armor of self-judgment. When we are highly anxious, our worldview shrinks. We become hyper-focused on our own perceived brokenness. Buddhist teacher Lodro Rinzler discusses this in one of the provided transcripts. He talks about recognizing basic goodness in yourself and others.
Basic goodness, that feels like the perfect antidote to the label of, I'm an anxious person.
It absolutely is. Recognizing basic goodness loosens those rigid identity labels. When you project kindness outward, you are stepping out of the isolation of your anxiety. It allows you to see the anxiety as just, temporary weather passing through the sky of your mind, rather than a permanent defining flaw in your character.
Wow. Let's step back and look at the masterclass toolkit we've built today for you. The clinical sources and the professional scripts give us a really clear modular architecture for anxiety relief.
They do.
First, you anchor your physiology. You use box breathing or the 5-4-3-2-1 sensory method to snap the brain out of the acute fight or flight panic loop and reallocate your mental RAM.
Second, you release the somatic tension. You recognize that your muscles are still holding the stress, so you use progressive muscle relaxation to actively flush it out, or a body scan to passively accept what your body is feeling.
And third, you rewire the cognitive narrative. Once the body is quiet, you use sensory visualization to give your mind a safe tether, and you use the self-compassion break or loving-kindness meditation to replace critical, isolating thoughts with connection and grace.
The beauty of this toolkit is its flexibility. You aren't just passively listening to a generic track. You are actively deploying targeted neurological tools based on what you actually need in that specific moment.
And that brings us to our final thought for you to take away today. We talked earlier about the clinical proof from that intense stress test trial, about how these specific practices can actually physically shrink the amygdala, the fear center of your brain.
The physical hardware of your brain actually changes based on the cognitive software you choose to run.
Exactly. If the science proves that practicing self-compassion and recognizing your own basic goodness can literally reshape the gray matter of your brain over time, well, what other physical realities in your body are currently being built right this second by the way you speak to yourself in the quiet privacy of your own head?